You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by In Play Live and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/InPlayLive to sign up and get in the game.
And every time I've talked people through what really goes on, they're always like stunned. Like, usually it's people from like Wall Street. They're like, oh, you must have those credible risk management models. And I'm like, the risk management models on a lot of these books is a 50-year-old guy with a stubby pencil going, well, what's Pinnacle doing?
Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle and purifying the sports betting industry. I'm your host, Shane Mercer, as always, joined by that guy over there, Andrew Pace, founder and CEO of In Play Live, a community of like-minded sports bettors dedicated to long-term success. And joining us today is Nigel Eccles, one of the original co-founders of FanDuel and currently the co-founder and CEO of BetHog, chairman of BetDex, a guy with more than 25 years of sports betting experience and working in the business of sports betting. He was working on betting exchanges in the early 2000s in Europe, while many sports bettors in North America, recreational sports bettors at least in North America, still don't even know what an exchange is. And of course, FanDuel has come to be one of the dominant players in the North American market. Nigel, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Really excited to have you here. But why don't we start it off, Nigel? What are you betting on?
What do you mean?
You answer that however you want. I want to know, what are you betting on? Whether it's a startup, whether it's for fun.
I'm betting on, to be honest, I'm betting on us making betting more fun and sociable. It's kind of weird. My view of the industry is offline betting. You go to a race course, even if you go to a bookmaker's office in the UK while they still exist, it's a very social experience. Online betting is kind of not like that. And I think our big bet is that making it social is going to be one of the next big unlocks in the industry. So that's our kind of one of our big plays.
Nigel, just because you brought that up, it made me think about all these crypto sites that have this chat down the side, and it's just like going, and it's so fake.
Like, like a lot of that's really real. Like,
is it multiple books? Sites. Like, is it multiple books, people combined into one? Because why would people just be like talking on this website?
I don't know. Like, you got to ask them. A lot of them, like Stake or, some of those big sites. No, those chats are really real, and they're quite funny. In fact, I'll tell you, FanDuel, when we launched back in 2009, we had FanDuel chat from very early on, and it was a complete nightmare, right? Like, so let me get this clear. We would have people come on, and they'd have a lineup in, and then they would pull out LeBron, and then they'd lose, and they'd like, hey, I was told LeBron wasn't playing. And you're like, where? And they were like, FanDuel chat. Like, you took from chat, like, and so he ended up this like huge long list of things that you could never say in chat, and we had to police it so much, but it was real fun. Everybody loved it, but it became too much of a nightmare to police, which is why we ended up pulling it. But no, I love chat.
That's awesome. Okay, so you said you want to make it more sociable. Is that what you're doing with BetHog? What is BetHog? Tell us a little bit about it. How does it work?
Yeah, so BetHog's a crypto casino and sportsbook. What makes us different from the other 500 out there? The difference is that we are focused on and investing in building our own games. So a lot of them are sort of based on the sort of crash type games you'll see on, say, Stake. But the difference is with our games is, one, we're trying to build them to be much more visually fun. And the reason for that is that so many more people discover casino games through streaming, like Kick and Twitch, but the games themselves haven't changed. You go on, you see Rothstein, he's like streaming on Twitch. He's playing a game that I could have played like 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, right? That to me is kind of crazy. The game itself should be kind of built for the audience. And then the second thing that we're doing is we're making it a lot more interactive. And so some of the games we're building is you're watching the streamer on Twitch or on Kick, you can actually get in on that game while they're playing. So we launched a game called Hogger 2 weeks ago. does exactly that. You're watching a streamer playing, you can get in on the action, actually play. And then the last thing that we're doing is we're building more games of skill. So DFS was a game of skill. Sports betting is and should be a game of skill, right? But no casino games outside of maybe blackjack are games of skill. That's something we're building. And there's actually 2 of the titles we've launched are games of skill. They're chance and skill, but they are certainly games of skill. And that's something we're also focusing a lot on.
You're going to have to expand there. Like, what kind of skills could I apply to these games? Can we talk about a couple of these games?
Yeah, let me drop into a couple of them. So one of the games is, so if you've ever played Crash, so Crash or Aviator, it's a game where basically a plane takes off and it crashes randomly somewhere between 1 and 1,000 ends, right? It's
when you say, like, if you've ever played, I think for Shane and I, maybe we've seen a couple things online, but we don't play online.
I have
casinos.
never played at an online casino.
You're really gonna have to watch
it's a really good teaching
I will
point.
say, Nigel, I will say, it surprises me that people are doing this to the extent that they are. Number one, but number two, I am interested if there is obviously a skill component to it. So
right,
and what you're describing is
no skill. There's no skill in that game, and this is a really good point. There are 2 markets here. There are people that play casino games. These are EV negative games, and they are doing it for entertainment, right? Like they're not. And then there's another audience like yourselves that would play. They'll do sports betting. You'll do DFS. You'll do poker. You wouldn't dream of playing a casino game, right? You're just like, why would anyone ever do that, right? You don't like. It's not even that. You don't even understand why anyone would do that. And so we want to build more games that are casino-like, but for that audience. And the way to do it is to bring in more skill elements. So in that game, what we've done is we've turned it into a buy-in tournament. So basically, you go in, you say you put in $10, you play competitively, and we give you $100 in play money. You then play competitively with all the other people who've bought in to see who's got the most money at the end of the round, or at the end of 10 rounds. 90% of this is chance, right? But 10% is a skill, because if you go ahead, say you've played well early on, you're ahead, you now need to play more conservatively. If you're behind, you now need to play more aggressively. And we've seen it already in the kind of couple of months that we've been testing this, is we have people who are skilled. They're beating the rake. The rake's like 1% on this, was recently. So the rake is actually very low. So you only need to have a very small edge in order to be able to to win, to beat the rake.
So what you're saying, so just help me understand the game itself separately at the tournament. I'm flying a plane and I have to take another step without crashing, and each potential step I take, I might crash.
Yes, but it's sort of continuous. It's continuous. So it's basically
I have to stop it. I have to stop.
Yeah, you're basically, it might be at like 1.5x, and you're like, am I going to take that, or am I going to try and go for 2x?
Oh, it's like deal or no deal in a sense.
It's kind of like, at what point am I going to take it? That's the gift.
So the game itself is chance, but the way you play the tournament would have potentially some players that could be a little bit more strategic in winning. And then I'm going to assume, similar to a poker tournament or a FanDuel of like DFS event, you enter at a certain price, and then there is a cut that you guys take
when you're playing against that.
Right. And then from a casino standpoint, I think about it and I go, that might then also encourage the player that did well in a play format to try their luck
in the chance format,
actual casino game. Right?
I think there's certainly people that will never go over to casino games, but there'll be a lot of people who play both.
Right. So that's the tournament model that you could really apply to any game. Is there any game itself that would be skill based?
There's one another. So we have 2 titles that have skill, and the other title we have is a game called Liar's Dice. Again, I don't know if you've played that one. So it's basically a bluffing game. It's actually like a very simplified version of poker. So both players roll 5 dice, and you're bidding for the number. You might say, so there's 10 dice in total. You might say, okay, 5 twos. Other player either has to increase the bid or call liar. So basically, you might call 5 twos, but you might have no twos, right? So the other person might think, okay, well, I must have at least 3 twos. They're going to increase it. Then I'm going to call liar. That one in testing, if you've got decent players, it's probably like 20% skill, 80% chance.
Right.
Okay.
So I think back to my days at poker, and I had notes on every player, because back in the poker boom, if you were playing on a bit of a niche site, so like obviously there was, a lot of the major sites, Full Tilt Poker, Party Poker. I think Full Tilt was the one that stole everyone's money. They were, everyone was sponsored by Full Tilt, and they just said they just fucking ran off, right?
Yeah, when Black Friday happened, they had like no money in the bank. They're like, oh.
Yeah. But it's interesting. So I played at a site called Hollywood Poker, and I didn't know this. It actually it took me a little bit of I guess market shopping for new places to play, where I realized that I was on now a new website, but I was sitting down with the same players from Hollywood Poker.
Was it over?
Yeah. So I could put myself as one user on Hollywood Poker and myself at the same table as another user through this other platform. And I had all my notes overlap from my Hollywood Poker days, where I was like now two entities on this table, which was total collusion. And I didn't have the wits then to really take advantage of it. I did well in that era. But I guess the reason why I'm saying this is because if you did in fact learn your opponent and their tendencies when it comes to this, I do see a potential edge there.
There's definitely edge. Oh, absolutely. And collusion's definitely something you have to be very careful of. It's been a big challenge for poker. I think it's been a major break for it. And it's something that we're very conscious of new games. So liar's dice, you can actually do multiplayer, but the issue is just collusion would be too big. So that's why we focused on one-on-one, 2-player.
Right. Well, I mean, there was also like a huge wave of collusion on poker tables where people were sending each other money. I don't know how the sportsbook or the casinos handled that, but I guess it would be like, if you're trying to launder money or whatever, you'd sit down at the table and you dump your money over to another player, right?
Right. Yeah. There's definitely there's a lot of management there. The money laundering issues is still something you have to be very cognizant of. So that hasn't really changed. Even within a sports book, you can have a user taking the under, somebody else taking the over, and really they're just laundering, right? Via like from your dirty account to your clean account. There's ways you can do that.
Oh, of course, yeah. And I mean, at the flip side of that is the casinos getting the fee, and if they can't identify it, then
right. But it still have like a responsibility not to let it happen.
I always found the discussion really interesting in Las Vegas, where you had to deposit to I don't even remember what this was, but it's like the online craze had begun with sportsbooks. And you know what? It might not be Las Vegas. This might be New Jersey. But you had to make your first deposit on the sportsbook in cash. So you had to physically go there. And I thought from like a verification standpoint of an account, I'm like, well, that's brilliant, because I can't, go make 30 accounts with all my buddies. And yeah, they could all go in and they could all do it, but it's just another path, like sort of.
Yeah, that was actually so. Nevada had it. A couple of other states had it. I think maybe Connecticut had it. That honestly was less about KYC and it was more about protectionism, which is the casinos were worried about like FanDuel and DraftKings, and they were like, okay, we're going to make it so that we're going to have online sports betting, but you have to register in the casino. FanDuel and DraftKings don't have a casino. So, that was really what that was about. What happened then was COVID happened, and then everyone was like, lad, like we've got to open this up. And so I'm not sure if any state has that you have to register within the casino anymore.
Right. Well, at the time, I thought about it from the standpoint of laundering. I'm like, so with the online fiat transactions, you have traceability to the funds. And there's a lot of systems in place where the names have to match and all this other stuff. So that makes things a little bit more difficult. Now you're saying, you got to come in and bring cash. So I'm thinking like these guys can just bring in briefcases of cash to fund their account and then pull it out electronically on the other side. And the other thing too that changed obviously with the regulation is like if you were to do that in an offshore sports book, there'd be all these rollover requirements and things like that. And oftentimes some of these regulated books, it's like your money's your money. So you could have just pulled it out without playing and turned cold hard cash from whatever source into sports betting winnings just like that. So I thought that was interesting. Anyways, Shane, I'm sure you got something else to bring up here.
I mean, there is so much I want to get into it and stuff I want to ask Nigel about, because creating and co-founding and then sort of steering FanDuel until about 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and now to see what it's become, I want to get your thoughts on what you think, how you think FanDuel has shaped the North American market, and how you think it's going to continue to shape it.
Yeah. Well, so I think one of the things, and we've thought this from when we started FanDuel in 2009, was the US was the bizarrest outlier in the world. Like, here we had a market that loves sports, that loves sports betting, and it was illegal apart from in one state. Like, it just made no sense, right? And you had every other sports league in the world figure out how to deal with sports betting, and accommodate and work with it. And we had, the NFL going, no, it will corrupt the sport and destroy us. And it seemed really anomalous. And we always felt that things that are that anomalous ultimately are going to change. We just didn't know how it was going to change. I think that DFS, sort of from 2009 to 2018, up until sports getting legalized, probably helped normalize, that this was like, hey, this is kind of like sports betting, and, the world hasn't ended, the sky hasn't fallen. So I think that should have massively helped. The other thing that I think isn't not that well known is that when FanDuel and DraftKings ran into huge legal and regulatory issues in 2015 to 2017, shall we say, we built a national lobbying effort. And so we were in state capitals. We were in Albany, Sacramento, name it. We were there, down in Richmond. And what that did was we then built relationships with in-state legislators, and we built very good relationships. We actually changed the law in 22 states with regards to fantasy sports. Those relationships and that lobbying team was really why we saw such a fast rollout of sports betting post-PASPA repeal, post-2018. Wow. Because we had all those relationships. We were already talking to those legislators, and we were going to them. We were coming back the next year and going, hey, sports betting you can legalize sports betting now. You did DFS last year. Now you can do sports betting. Let's do it. And this is going to be a big tax driver for your state. And so that, I think, was a big driver that people don't really kind of realize, that we built that in 2015 to 2017.
Okay, so
makes so much sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And we've heard a little bit about this from some of our previous guests coming on. And now I got to ask you, how is FanDuel leveraging that infrastructure of relationships now, especially when it comes to working with the regulators?
Yeah, so that was very, very effective at getting it legal and regulated in those states. I think, once then you're live and you're in those states, it's about the relationship with those regulators. In general, I think they've been pretty smooth. There's generally, I think there's a lot of noise at the national level. Like, obviously, national level politics in the US is hugely contentious. It's, it's all about a fight between one side and the other. Mm-hmm. At a state level, it's a lot is about finding compromises. So, when you're lobbying, you're like, so I'll give you an example. In New York, we wanted to get a bill through in 2016, legalizing DFS. There was one potential opponent, which was an upstate. It's actually based outside Buffalo, Batavia, which had racetracks. They were like, well, this could impact on our revenue. And so we did a partnership with them. We're like, hey, why don't we work together? Like, we can do events, we can do a deal. So we got those guys on board. And that was kind of just an example of how we work together. With the government, what you're doing is saying, okay, what are you worried about? Well, we're worried about problem gambling. Well, let's agree to a framework for problem gambling. Okay, what else are you worried about? Well, how's the tax revenues going to be used? That's something else you work with them on. So it's kind of at a state level. There's a lot of that, a lot of discussions, a lot of finding out what people's issues are and trying to, as an industry, work with them. I think in general, it's been very successful. I'd say the only areas where you can see, well, the two areas I'd say the bigger concerns in the industry are, I'd say number one, areas like New York or very high tax rates, like 51% tax is pretty punitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, while sports betting has been phenomenally successful, I think we're something like 40 states, casino has been very slow. So I think we're only at 6 or 7 states have online casino. And it's just a lot harder to get casino legislation through. There isn't, it's not necessarily a vote winner. People want sports betting. People will vote for it. We saw that in Missouri. Casino just doesn't get people excited. The operators want it because it's very profitable, but it's harder to get voters enthused about it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think we could probably relate to that in a lot of ways. Where Pace and I and a lot of our audience are very interested in sports betting, not so interested in casino gaming and that kind of thing. I've got to ask you: have you been paying attention to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission and what they're doing with the practice of limiting and digging into limiting at the individual level?
I have, yes, and also in the UK as well, where it sort of feels like this practice originated.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very familiar with limiting.
Yeah, and
I'm personally have been limited, so I have personal experience of.
Oh, well,
Were you limited at FanDuel?
yeah.
I was limited by Betfair in the UK.
Oh,
what?
Which was stunning because the couple of things. One, I'm pretty certain I'm not a AV positive customer there. I had just deposited. I was betting the Grand National, which is it's 10 times bigger than the Kentucky Derby. It's the biggest horse race, in the UK. And I was trying to put down a £500 bet. It wasn't a huge bet. So I'm wow, they're limiting me. They're really coming down the list of people they're limiting. Wow. So yes, very familiar with it.
Okay, well, that's great. So there was a big meeting that took place a couple of months ago, and I just want to sort of give you a sense of how FanDuel and the representatives from FanDuel characterized winning sports bettors. They basically said that winning bettors are they're court-siding, they're cheating, they're working with nefarious groups. That there is they can that it is a very, very, very tiny fraction of people who are winning sports bettors, and that fraction of people are in some way cheating or gaming the system or are just bad actors.
We're bad.
We're bad people. That's essentially what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me at all. Because here's the thing about the industry. In my view, the issue is not merely limiting. I know that is the part of the issue. The issue is that I feel the operators should be sued for misadvertising. And let me explain this. They advertise that here's a product that you can win on.
Right.
Yep.
They know that if you do win on it, they will stop you. So you can't win on these products, right? You can't win because they will limit you. And so I feel that they're actually being highly misleading in their advertising. What they want is they want you to think you can win, but you can't. And that to me feels, I don't that to me I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I think that's definitely it's misleading. And that's kind of the issue. The problem for the industry is that it is more profitable for them to invest there's two ways you can go about it. You can either, a lot of people outside the industry think that these sports books have got incredibly deep and complex risk management models, and they have incredible insight into what's happening and who, what the true price is and everything. And every time I've talked people through what really goes on, they're always stunned. Usually it's people from Wall Street. They're oh, you must have those credible risk management models. And I'm the risk management models on a lot of these books is a 50-year-old guy with a stubby pencil going, well, what's Pinnacle doing? we're a couple of points off, right? Like, so how does it work? They don't have that sophisticated model. The way it works is you limit the winners. And if you limit the winners, you can't lose. And that's kind of my issue with the industry, is that they market itself as something you can win when you cannot. And they're, instead of taking a strategy which is, actually, we're going to take these on. And there's other markets where bookies do take on the sharp money, but the US is not one. And so the US, in effect, markets itself as if it's sports betting, but really it's casino.
Right.
And you think that they're misleading. You clearly said that you believe that they're completely misleading the public with their advertising in that sense.
100%.
Did you ever think that that's what it would become? You know, this company that you co-founded?
Yes. Love
the honesty.
Yeah.
Look, like at scale, it's just very hard, right? Like that, that is the most profitable strategy. Yeah. And unless someone's going to force them not to follow that strategy, they're going to follow that strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
So with your role with FanDuel, obviously, your tenure, I'm not sure if you're still involved.
No, I'd left like 6, 7, more than that.
Right. So your tenure more or less ended
7 years ago
at the time of legalization in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So were you involved in the sportsbook at all?
No, I left very end of 2017. The first sportsbook was launched summer of 2018.
But obviously you were there and you knew it was coming, and obviously what you're referencing with the legislation and all that, laying the framework and all that. Interesting. And I mean, at that time, like, was FanDuel, did they have a sportsbook product that we just hadn't seen yet?
No, because it wasn't legal at that point. Like PassBet got appealed, and I
guess I mean, like, if you go to BetHog right now, it says BetHog beta. Like, was there a FanDuel beta where the sports?
No, because before PassBet, there was no state in which we could have operated in. So there would be, and before that decision, it would have been very hard. Like, it wouldn't have made sense to develop a product that you couldn't sell.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I got to ask you, what does a fair playing field look like to you when it comes to this space?
Fair is kind of a loaded term. Like, I can talk about other markets. Like, if you look at, for example, the Indian market. Now, the Indian market's offshore, but because India doesn't have KYC, there's no limiting. There's no way to limit, right? Because you don't know where that money is coming from. And so that market, and a lot of that market goes through exchanges. So Betfair being the sort of the major one. That is a market that takes sharp money, takes retail, kind of gets mixed together. It operates on pretty low margin, but it's generally pretty successful for all like participants. Like Betfair does well in it. The brokers do well on it. The sharp bettors do well on it. It wouldn't be as profitable or nearly as profitable as it would be if you had let's call it the casino model, which is you limit the winners and you just take the losers. Like, you could say that's fairer to all the participants, but it's different.
Yeah. Huh.
Cool. So let's talk about BetHog, the sports product, then, because you guys are launching a sports book, or you have launched a sports book.
So we've so we're casino first. Our focus there, like, there are hundreds, there are thousands of crypto sports books out there. We're not aiming. The aim for our sports book today is to be a companion to the casino product. So people are on the casino product, they want to place a bet, they don't have to go somewhere else. Their money's with us. That's where it is. So it is very much focused on the retail side. We're not focused on having the best prices, and we probably won't. We almost certainly won't. That's just not what we're aiming for. And we basically market it like we're marketing casino first.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So from a sportsbook standpoint, though, if you have a product, FanDuel was known as, or is known as, a sportsbook that's independent from other lines. Like, you jump over to Bet Rivers and Unibet and all these are all running on the Kambi odds provider. And, you jump over to MGM and they're sharing, here in Canada, we have Sports Interaction and BWin. They're all using those MGM lines, right? Or Scientific Gaming, I should say. I shouldn't say MGM lines. So are you guys using your own odds provider? Have you brought someone on for that kind of stuff? How does that
like, so BetHug's a small team. We're a 10-person team. The sportsbook, pretty much all of it is handled through a third-party provider.
Okay.
We built our own front end, and that's something that we want to do more work on because we think we can actually make that experience better. But odds, risk management, all of that is handled by a third party.
So, what's interesting about this discussion is, so we threw an event in Vancouver with a company called UBET, and the CEO of the company and I have kind of shot the shit together a few times, and I told him that he was going to limit my account. And he was like, well, what he is a great marketing guy, and that's why they brought him on. And his sportsbook knowledge, I would say, is in the learning stages. Let's put that. We should all always be learning, but he's definitely in the learning stages. And he did the whole and to give you an example, he texted me one time saying, "Can you please let me know how a parlay works?" Right, like mathematically speaking. So that, and great guy. Like, I'm not talking shit. Great guy. Like, really fun, awesome, great guy. So I explained the limiting process and he's like, no, like we're not going to do that. And I kind of chuckled, right? So sure enough, I sent him off like, hey, I can only bet like 15, 20 bucks on your site now. And he actually had them reversed for me for a very short period of time. And then they said, no, this guy's winning too much money. Now, what's crazy about the discussion is I know he genuinely tried to override the trading team's decision and they said no. Now, how will your relationship be in a similar situation with your trading team, given the discussion that we just had? Will a winning player be able to play at BetHog?
Well, the difference is, I got to tell you right now, we'll limit you.
That's it.
So what's funny though is, like, I know you said casino first, but like, how do you solve this problem? You
should bet on BetDex. BetDex is a betting exchange. It'll never limit users. You'll get better pricing. You're not paying any commission. Like, that's what we built BetDex for.
Right.
And so I just, for the audience, I started BetDex in 2021. We launched it about 2 years ago. That's what it's for. It's for sharps. It's for everyone. No one's getting limited.
Okay. Although I love that you just pivoted right over to that, because hey, you're saying, look, there's one way to operate over here, right? And this is that business model, and that's what it's going to be. And you're open and honest about it. I love that. And then here's another model that we're also, that you're also involved in, and that is made for you guys, Pace and Shane, and all of our audience out there. So tell me then about the exchange, because our experience, I think, on exchanges, while we have had some great ones and we've worked with some great ones, there's still some issues when it comes to exchanges. One is liquidity, and especially for what Pace and I do, and a large portion of our community, is we focus on live in-play wagering, which right now, finding an exchange with significant liquidity in an in-play market is like damn near impossible.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. What would we find at BetDex? Would it be a similar experience?
Yeah. So, I don't want to overpromise. BetDex is still very much work in progress on it. So BetDex is built directly on Solana. So it's actually built on a blockchain, which means that it's slower than if it was built on a AWS server. That makes it harder to be a market maker on it, because you're going to have stale prices, right? You're going to be like, instead of going out in microseconds, it's like taking a few seconds. That's problematic, particularly depending on the sport. So cricket's easier than soccer, for example. Right. It's a constantly changing. Like, we're bringing on more and more market makers. We're bringing on more and more volume. So I'd say that cricket is somewhere we're better at. Soccer is something we're moving on. US sports is sort of still coming.
Okay.
In terms of good liquidity in play.
So BetDex then, is it fiat or is it's, you said it operates on Solana, but is it fiat or is it
So basically, well, as of, it should be either this or next week, you can come in, you can deposit. So today you can deposit with Solana or fiat.
Okay.
And as of
And I
next
can play
week,
in fiat if I wanted to.
it's ineffectively fiat. It's a stable coin. It's USDC.
Right.
Right. Okay.
As of next week, or this week, we'll add Bitcoin, Ethereum. You can deposit in any cryptocurrency or fiat, and then you can play in that, but you will be playing in US dollars.
So from a liquidity standpoint, if I have USDC in and someone's offering the other side of a line in Ethereum,
Everyone's playing in USDC.
Everyone's playing in USDC. It's all about how you actually get the money in. Okay, that's smart.
Money in and out, you can deposit with whatever cryptocurrency or fiat you want, but then when you're playing in US dollars.
Okay, so one of the things BetHog advertises that BetDex, I'm going to assume, they're both Web3?
Yes, in slightly different ways. So BetHog takes deposits in cryptocurrencies, holds it in those cryptocurrencies. BetDex takes a deposit, but then converts it into, in effect, US dollars, and then you're betting in US dollars.
But are they both still Web3 from the standpoint that the wagers being made are on the blockchain?
Yeah, BetHog is not. BetHog is off-chain, so which means it's fast, right?
Right.
BetDex today is on-chain, which means it's slower than it would otherwise be.
Right. So I think about that you brought that up. And before I ask my next question, why don't you explain, as if no one's ever used crypto in the simplest way possible, what does that mean to be operating on the blockchain or Web3?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very simply, simplest way to think of blockchain is like a big database. You can have a database on Amazon Web Services, which is what BetHog has. So somebody deposits money, all the transactions on BetHog are recorded on our site in our own database, right? And so that means it's super fast. But it also means that you have to sort of trust us, right? Because the only record of it that's happening is in our database, okay? BetDex, what happens is you put money into a wallet on our site, and then all of those bets you can see on a public database, which is Solana. So you can actually just type in a URL, and you can see every transaction, and you can see, oh, the money went from this wallet to this wallet. It went from this. When the bet went to be settled, basically what happened is this contract settled and the money went back out to that wallet. So there's a lot, you don't have to trust as much, and we're doing what we say we're doing.
Right. So when I place a wager and it's accepted, that money has left my wallet and it's held in trust.
And it's held in another contract.
In trust.
Yeah, which you can look at on an independent browser, independently of BetDex. You can see, oh yeah, there's the money there. It's waiting for, a settlement.
Right. So it's interesting because that's similar to, obviously, Shane, with SXBet.
Yeah,
correct.
And one of the challenges with SXBet, you already just said, it's the time it takes for a transaction to process. And when you're wagering on a live bet, if the line moves, it might take 30 seconds, it might take 45 seconds. When the line moves during that time, the agreement that you originally made is void, so the bet doesn't go through. But
the biggest issue is for the market maker, because, as they are the ones who are stuck with a price up there, like they've put up a price, but that could change in seconds, and they can't get it down fast enough before other people have come in and grabbed it.
Right. So it has to mirror what another website is doing, which we do see to an extent on their platform. But the reason why I said it is because when I saw this Web3 betting, I got really excited about a different website. And I'm actually not going to say their name because they really came across to me as someone that I could not trust. But I feel like they're almost using that sort of Web3 model to make it seem as if it is your money while you're playing with it, but they're holding it. They like with SX, it's your wallet. With BetDex, it's your wallet. So that's your money, right? Like, you're not holding my funds. Whereas when that example is being brought up on other sites, I think the user, with anything with crypto, the user really has to make sure that they know what they're doing. I myself have
100% agree.
lost so much money sending it into the abyss or whatever it is, losing my keys, like the dumbest shit, right? And to an extent, you have to go through some of this stuff to learn. But as a user entering the space, which already has a barrier to entry, this isn't some simple thing for people where they're like, oh, I'm sending, I'm just, here's my credit card, take my money. In fact, most credit cards and banks will block these types of transactions because of the amount of scams associated with them. So there really is a barrier to entry here. Now, when you cross over the barrier, you have to be the person that takes care of your funds and who you're playing on, and don't let this Web3 discussion be something that increases trust, because people are using it to actually scam you or to hold your funds, right? So I think what you're doing there with BetDex is great, because that takes what I said out of the equation.
So there was, and this is a sort of a 2021 sort of holy grail, that it's in crypto, we talk about trustlessness. So you could basically from your wallet go bet on something else, and it would be all in code. There was no way that a third party could, you didn't have to trust them, because you could read it all and it's all in code. What we've discovered over the last couple of years is, yes, that is possible, but the user experience is so bad, right, that no one wants to use it. Right. And that's number one. Number two is people are kind of more willing to trust these things. But put this better. People are not willing to make the trade-off of user experience in order to move to something that's totally trustlessness, right? Like they're not willing to go, every time I place a bet, I have to click 5 buttons and I have to deal with this really janky web experience. If you want full Web3 decentralization, that's what you have to put up with. And what we discovered was no one wants to put up with it. And so actually and this is what BetHog does, is we use crypto for deposits and withdrawals, but we don't use it for anything that happens on the site, because to be honest, people just kind of trust us, right? And we say that you trust us, but they're like, they trust us and they don't want the shitty experience of having to click 5 buttons every time they place a bet, every time.
Right. And I mean, separately of trust, that's where, we've talked about legislature and things like that in the United States, but that's where, you hope that whoever is licensing these offshore crypto sports books is a source of trust. And quite honestly, they aren't. Yeah. So you do have to trust the brand.
I think a lot, like in any market, a lot comes to brand. For example, I would trust Stake. I bet on Stake. I think they're a very reputable company. And there's plenty of others that I would trust. If there's one that sort of pops up and I've never heard of them and they've got a license from somewhere, it would take me a while before I would be like, okay, I trust them with my money. I think, but it's just this is
maybe I should take some of this.
I was just gonna say, Pace.
You gotta verify.
Well, but when you get limited as often as we do, you got to take risks.
You take risks.
Yeah, the money stolen from me, unfortunately. But so will BetHog be a reliable source if our guys do go there and they do get limited? Can they expect to be paid?
Oh, they'll definitely pay people. That's that's I think that's sort of a bare minimum. I just don't know if I don't think they'll find the best prices. To be totally honest.
That's fine. You guys are doing your thing. You're creating a fun social experience. Listen, if you don't like it, don't play there. It's that simple, right?
I would, definitely wouldn't complain. But they definitely should be trying BetDex. That's where they're going to get good prices. They might not get the depth and liquidity. BetDex has also just launched a broker service, which is if you want a better price and you're not seeing the liquidity, you can it's basically DMing them and they will give you the best price.
Right. Okay. That's cool.
They go to a market maker and say, not so much in play, but pre-game, they're actually doing a pretty chunky volume on that.
Right. Well, when you just look at the landscape and everything that we've touched on, something like BetDex needs to be a major player in the United States. Like Shane and I are both in Canada, right? But something needs to break through there for people to play on, and I certainly don't have the answer there. But my big
to
piece
be
of
the
advice
case.
is
It's been very difficult. One of the challenges in the US is the Wire Act. It's a question of whether a sports betting is crossing state lines, which is still illegal at a federal level. You can bet within the state, but you can't bet between states. And so that's hampered anybody who's tried to launch an exchange in the US. So they'll have like a market in New Jersey and then another one in Colorado, but they can't have two people betting with each other between those states.
right, and not to mention Bovada's been basically shut down across the United States.
Correct.
So separately of that, they are really cracking down on the gray market sports books there.
Yeah.
So when you think about like what cryptocurrency is as a currency, and the fact that I can have like this little piece of plastic in my pocket and fly from Vancouver to China, and I've got my $1 million in Bitcoin sitting in my pocket still. You want this to break through from a sports betting standpoint, where a company like Stake's a good example. Stake's this big offshore gray market juggernaut, and it's on the freaking rings. Like, you talk about what's legal and isn't legal. Well, why are they all advertising in California? Why are they all advertising across the United States? But let's say a juggernaut like Stake that says that has been able to just bypass all this through the use of cryptocurrency. And I feel like they tried. I do feel like they tried. They made it so that if you came and played there, you could do so pretty much anywhere and they didn't care. But the problem with that model is, as soon as it works for a short period of time, you get guys like me that are now on their 6th, 7th, 10th, 20th, 200th account. And they finally go, okay, we not only do we need to start verifying accounts, we're going to start doing blood samples along with the verification, right? Because we need the actual DNA of this human being and every single thing about them. They sent me an email and it said, hey dude, like, here's your 16 accounts, right? And this is the thing, is like, it was a learning experience for me. This is years and years and years ago. And they're like, we see the IP overlap. Like, we know this is all you. They paid me and everything, and they just said, you just got to stop. And like I said, it was a learning lesson for me, where now I never do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm actually not going to get paid by most of these sports books.
Yeah, a lot of these sites. That's correct.
Right. So then when I talk about like, oh, it'd be great for this sort of breakthrough. So, something like BetDex to become this sort of juggernaut in the sort of offshore gray market space. The flip side to it all is, then how do you deal with someone like me in a way that is responsible and productive? And the goal for me would be, well, just let me have my one account, give me a fair limit that is reasonable. If I go down to the street and I'm like, oh, they won't let me bet $10,000, people are going to laugh at me like, who's this privileged loser talking about? But if it's $500 and they go, okay, that's the number, whatever it is, and it seems fair to the average person, if that system arrives or exists, that's where, as a player, you can go, okay, this is awesome. I have this. Like, I have this crutch.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I do think betting exchanges like BetDex is the best way to service customers like that. Like,
if the liquidity increases.
Yes.
Yeah. It's got to have the liquidity in the markets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we help? We have to go play there.
Go play there. Yeah, go and give them
go play at the exchanges. That's what will help them, right?
Yeah.
Nigel, I got one last question for you, but before we let you go, and you've been very gracious with your time with us, so thank you for that. But I want to just get your 2 cents on something that I saw today. It was actually posted in our Discord group by one of our members, and I thought, oh, this is fascinating, and it's something I can put to you. It's a Rolling Stone article that came out today, or I think over the weekend. Headline: is the $11 billion online sportsbook bubble about to burst? That's the headline. They sort of go through the article and kind of say maybe. I want to know, what do you think about it? about
Did,
that.
did they have any analysis to why they thought it might?
Oh, they've got
it's a lengthy article.
It's a very long article. Yeah. There's a lot in it, but yes, they do have, a whole bunch of reasons limiting and abilities for sharp bettors to continue to pump liquidity in was one issue. Especially with some of these, some of the softer books, they sort of got into the whole race to market and how a whole bunch of sports books are now dominating the market, which we know who they are, and you helped found one of them. So and now all of those sort of tertiary players, the people that are there are the companies that are in the 5th, 6th, 7th spots. In terms of market are just like exiting, they're leaving, they're out of here. So what do you think when somebody poses that question?
Like in a word, no.
Okay.
Like it's, we're still early on this market. Sometimes I hear an argument from people, which is like, surely if people are losing money, they'll stop. And I always show them a picture of Las Vegas.
Interesting.
You think, right? Like, so no, this is an entertainment product. What I will say is it's going to burst for a lot of players that are not FanDuel and DraftKings, and probably MGM as well. Those sort of tertiary players should never have entered the market. They were late with weak products and worse pricing. So the like Fanatics, ESPN Bet, like these are not credible long-term players. And they never were. It was obvious when they launched that they had missed the opportunity. I think some of them will continue to do okay in casino. Or actually do quite well in casino. But in terms of sports betting, this is at most a 3-player, really a 2-player market. And it's going to continue to grow. We have new markets coming online, even old markets, even New Jersey. I think it grew something like 20 to 30% last year. So that's a state where we've had sports betting for 6 years. It's not a new thing, and it's still growing strongly. So,
well, the article actually referenced they had 27 operators when they launched, and they're down to 13.
Right, and they're going to be soon down to 4.
Yeah.
Wow. But the market will grow in that period, right?
Right.
I remember those 27 operators, US bets, and you just drove down the freeway in New Jersey, and you're like, I just couldn't believe how stupid some people were thinking this was going to be this enormous money pot. It's no, by that point, FanDuel and DraftKings had both invested hundreds of $500 million or $1 billion in building their position. You're turning up at a gunfight with a pea shooter going, hey, we want our share. It's ESPN, if they had launched in 2018, 2019, probably could have been.
They had the funds. They had more funds.
Yeah. They could have been a big player if they'd launched earlier, but they decided to pick a bad product with weak marketing, which was Pan. And, they launched way too late. If ESPN had partnered with, say, somebody like Bet365, that would have been a national player. But they decided that Penn was more desperate and more willing to give them the money, and that's why they went with Penn. So, and that's why we have 2 operators.
Crazy.
Yeah. A great conversation with you, Nigel. Really enjoyed this. Fascinating stuff. Would love to have you back on the show at some point in the future. Yeah. Best of luck to you at BetHog and at BetDex. Really, hoping for success with BetDex. Absolutely. That's something that I think Pace and I would love to see grow. And just a fantastic conversation. I think this has been great for me, for Pace, and for our entire audience. So thank you for giving your time to us.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. That was Nigel Eccles. What a fascinating conversation with the co-founder of FanDuel. Unbelievable. All right. But now it is time for the gridiron grind. This time, no Gosu. Pace, just me and you grinding it out here on the football week ahead.
If I'm sitting here right now and I'm listening and you hear Pace and Shane are going to grind out some pregame for the people listening, I'd say,
what are we doing here?
Hang up or fade. Hang up or fade. John Wilson. I mean, this guy, he's just a notorious sleeper. So he can't wake up on time. I think it's 2:00 where he is right now. He's not awake. So we're just pushing forward without him here, Shane. we're moving on. So, and I think that no matter what I bring up, John would be on the opposite side here. So I'm probably not going to bet any of these things. For college football, we saw Tennessee go down to Georgia last week. So Georgia kept their hopes alive for the playoffs. It just was a really exciting game, and I felt like Georgia kind of showed us that they're still hanging around, as bad as we've kind of seen them look this season. But there's really just one game that everyone in the world is going to be talking about come this Saturday. It's in the early slate, and you can guess it before I even say it. Indiana, the Hoosiers are taking on the Ohio State, which is just the most electric game this year that no one thought would be the most electric game this year, because Indiana, for the first time in program history, is 10-0. They're coming off of a bye. They're ranked 5th, I believe. And taking on the Ohio State on the road. But they're plus 13 and they're undefeated. And they've shown us that they can hang with really anyone. So I won't be betting this pregame, but I'm really excited to bet this live. And if I had a gun to my head pregame, I'd be on the Hoosiers, because 13 points in a competitive football game is absolutely insane. It's also the real test for them, where if they hang with them, right, and they lose the game, but they hang with them, people know they're for real. If they win this game, the Indiana Hoosiers are a freaking threat to win this whole thing this year, which is insane. The most out of left field team of the year, and I'm here for it.
Can you give me what's the Buckeyes record?
9-1. They lost to the Ducks, and their loss to the Ducks, if anyone watched that game, they beat the Ducks without just finishing the game. It was like watching any of the Bengals games this season. It's like they won, but they don't get the win.
They did not get the W. Okay, got it.
Okay, week 12 in the NFL. Things are really shaping up from a division standpoint. We've got some juggernauts that have really proven that they're here to stay. The Buffalo Bills look incredible. The division is theirs. The Houston Texans, they haven't won the division yet, but they look like they will run away with that division. The Kansas City Chiefs, they haven't won the division yet. The Chargers are actually nipping on their heels, but I think they're going to take care of the division and obviously be a Super Bowl threat. The Eagles took down the Commandos. Eagles are looking like they're back to form. They really do. I fucking hate their coach,
especially on the defense side. The defensive side looks incredible.
Yeah, and the Commandos are there still. They're still nipping on their heels. They haven't done it yet. But I mean, these Detroit Lions, they look insane. Your Vikings are nipping on their heels, but I think the Lions are going to take care of things there. And then there's two just divisions that seem like they're underperforming. They're wide open. We got the Falcons leading the division with the Bucks at 4-6, still able to catch them. The Bucks have a really difficult schedule they have all season. So that division's kind of still up for grabs, I would say. Many of them are that I just referenced, but it just kind of feels as though those teams are going to take care of business. And then the NFC West is shocking. The Niners are in last place at 5-5. The Rams are in second place at 5-5, and the Cardinals are leading that division on an island at 6-4, which the Cardinals would have paid a fortune. They would have been the least likely of the four teams to be leading the division. But what that makes for in divisions where we have the Ravens and the Steelers, in divisions where we have the Bucks and the Falcons, in the divisions where we have every team like the Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Cards competing, is for some great competitive football down the stretch here. So going through the menu this week, there's a couple of standout games to me, and I'm kind of going to reference some of the things that John said. The Steelers continue to be underpriced. They're -3 in Cleveland, and the total's 36.5. So this to me screams trap game, because I love the Steelers. If I love a game this much, I'd fucking run and hide from it. I don't bet pregame. The only thing I bet pregame are teasers. So I won't be betting this, but that Steelers -3, I cannot believe that that's the line. If I was a pregame bettor and if I was good at it, I would bet that. So I would probably bet the Browns in that game after I just gave that whole spiel.
Interesting point on that game too is not giving the Steelers enough credit. The over-under opened at 42.5, and I see it's moved all the way down to 36.
Must be weather.
Maybe, yeah. Cleveland, probably getting cooler for sure. I don't know what's in the forecast. I have to take a look at that. But 36, it feels like potentially the Steelers could go and put up 36 on their own against this Cleveland team.
Yeah, and Cleveland stunk last week. Like they looked awful. Guys, so from a teaser standpoint, there's a lot that don't fit the bill, and we finally broke our streak. We went 3 of 5 on our calls last week. So if you were selective or if you made a bunch of different combos, you would be break even at best. But yeah, it happens. And also the 2 picks that lost, you've got the Niners the Niners up 4 with the ball with 2.5 minutes left, where if they just pick up a first down, the game's going to be over more or less. And they're throwing the ball. They're not running the ball. They're playing like absolute idiots. Just terrible football. And then you got the Chiefs down 2, where if the Bills pick up a first down, the game's over. They score a touchdown. The Chiefs can still come back and cover. But those were great spots for teasers. Just because something doesn't win doesn't mean you didn't do the right thing. And that's always an important message. So no brainer, Houston at home, -7.5. You want to tease them down to 1.5. I hate teasing games on the road, but I think Detroit fits the bill. So that one interests me. The Browns at home would be a spot that makes so much sense to tease them up to +9.5 or +9 with that low total, but there is no way I am touching that one. Miami also makes sense. I think they're a dumpster fire of a team right now, and I think the Patriots are a little bit better than what we think, so I'd stay away from that one. Yeah, and just going down the list, the Broncos fits the bill for a minus, but I don't like road teams, and there's just something about Denver that I can never really end up being sold on. So the third one that I like when all is said and done here is going to be the Niners at +8 or +8.5 against Green Bay. Yeah, and to be honest, in these previous weeks, I've looked at stuff where I'm like, oh my God, I just love this game for a teaser. And with all of the ones I just mentioned, I don't love any of them, but they fit the bill, and I'll probably string those 3 together just for a recreational bet. So it'd be Lions, Texans, and Niners there. Anything you see in there, Shane?
No, just want to just mention the Cardinals at Seattle. That's gonna I can't wait to watch that game, and I never thought I might say that, but I think we're gonna get a great football game there. And the Cardinals are playing great ball, so I like that game a lot, but it looks like it's basically a pick 'em at this point.
Yeah, and if the line moves and you could get 7.5 on either side, so if someone goes to -1.5, that would be something that I would definitely be interested in slapping on a teaser.
The only other thing I want to mention too is we also referenced the race in the NFC South, Bucks and Falcons kind of battling it out. The Bucks have got themselves what should be a pretty easy matchup on the road facing the Giants. The Giants just announced that they benched Danny Dimes. So they're going with Tommy DeVito in that one. And I don't think the spread is too bad. I see it at 5 right now. So, if you could just get that down to like a pick, I think that might be a spot. So,
oh wow, Shane's first teaser leg there, guys. There is one other game that is like a 10 out of 10 for the math and the numbers. Another really low total, and that would be the Bears at home. The Bears looked really good last week. They looked really good, and I'm just not buying it. There's certain games where I go, I'm just not betting on the Chicago Bears. Patriots, I'm like, I'm not betting for them or against them. There's things as a bad pregame better that I do that you should probably ignore. But that one from a teaser standpoint makes a lot of sense based on the numbers for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, if you are going to bet anything pregame, Pinnacle Sportsbook is the place to do it. You're going to get the very best lines. Absolutely better vig than anywhere else you'll find. That is the place to do it. Head to pinnacle.com/in-play live. If you're not signed up, that's the place to go and sign up. You definitely want to go through that pace. I've got to say, the landing page there looks sick. Like, you got to go check it out just for that reason.
Yeah. So what's interesting though about the Pinnacle discussion, and this is the thing, right? Pinnacle's a sharp sports book. Let's call a spade a spade. They're a tough sports book to beat.
They're probably the sharpest sports book in the world.
Yeah. I got a text from Randy this morning, and he said crazy week. And it's a crazy week when I've been middling to Pinnacle, and my Pinnacle balance is up and all my soft books balances are down. And it's actually a really good message to people, because we did have a tough week at In Play Live, a really fucking tough week. One of those ones that's hard to get through. When you have a book that's sharp like this, that can help you through identifying which lines are soft and which aren't. And this isn't just pregame. This is live betting. Like Pinnacle has timeouts, breaks, all that kind of stuff. tremendous live bets that actually I believe are beatable as well. When you pick your spots, if you're taking, let's put it this way, if there's a call made at In Play Live and you're taking your bet at Pinnacle, that's probably not the best. But if you pick your spots there, you can win. Separately of that, because of them being so sharp and trusting who they are in the industry, they're okay offering middles and arbs at certain times. And they welcome you to do that against them. Now, when you have a tough week and you have a book like this with all your soft books, you can just print money and it doesn't matter which side wins or loses, right? So to the example of the text I just got, it's more likely that all of your MGMs and FanDuels and crypto books and whatever are going to be the side that are up against Pinnacle in any given week. But when you de-risk and your Pinnacle side is the side that's up, you still didn't have a bad week. So it is really important to sign up there and to use their lines.
And just on that topic, another big benefit is that, let's say your Pinnacle account has gone up, and you've sort of lost money on some of your soft books. You can go take that money out of Pinnacle, no problem, no hassle. Don't have to worry about getting limited. Just go pull it out, disperse it how you need to after that. Whereas, if it's a soft book and that account's up, you're like, oh, do I pull this? Do I not pull it? Am I going to get limited if I pull it? Don't have to worry about that shit at Pinnacle.
Right. And one of the things too, from my standpoint, so when I play, if I'm playing at Bookmaker or Pinnacle or wherever some of these books are that don't limit you, everyone does their own thing. They have their own decisions and how they handle their bankroll. But what I typically do is I'll do, a $2,000 to $3,000 deposit. I wager there. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I typically can go on a pretty good run, 20, 30,000. But in past time, because they are sharp, I've had it where I've gone up to 70, 100,000. And I've potentially lost it or lost a bunch of it and then withdrawn the balance. So now what I do, because I know that a withdrawal isn't going to get my account under review, is if I run it up to 20,000, I just pull it, drop it back down to 5. So 20 to 5, 20 to 5, 20 to 5. And then I lose the 5 goes and I restart the process. Yeah. And I think that that's a good way to handle really sharp sports books.
Yeah, love that advice. Great stuff there. All right, Pace. Well, great week. Great episode. I loved having Nigel on, and always fun to do the grind, even if Gosu isn't here. So a lot of fun there. But again, that's pinnacle.com/inplaylive. All right, Pace, to you, to all the sports bettors around the world. Till next week, keep beating those books.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.